Welcome to Hear From Where, a podcast about the journeys that shape us. I'm your host, Chef Andrew Garrett, and each week I'll sit down with incredible individuals who've carved their own paths in health, nutrition, entrepreneurship, sports, and beyond. This is where we dive deep into the stories of determination, resilience, and passion, the moments that brought them here, from where they started. Whether you're looking for inspiration, a spark to start your own journey, or just love hearing amazing stories, then you're in the right place. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's explore what it really takes to follow your dreams. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Hear From Where podcast. I'm Chef Andrew Garrett, and today we're sitting down and joined by Dre and G Scott, the co-founders of Farm to Fit. How are y'all doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
excellent. So, for those folks that don't know, Farm to Fit is a meal prep delivery here in Portland, Oregon. And how long have y'all been doing this? Give me a little bit of a backstory on where this all started.
Well, we started in 2011, so 13 years. We started with in the kitchen downtown. Or actually, no, it was on Alberta's. You have to do the facts, G. You do the facts.
2011, November 1st was our first delivery. We used the shared kitchen, which is, I think, called Victoria's now. It was, what was the Mexican? Like, the front of the house was the Mexican. It was Kenny's place. And then in the back, they did the burrito carts. They actually owned the building. And we rented that for 3 months. And then we got very crowded very fast. And it was very cold because they leave the back door open because the hood didn't work well. And so we ended up moving downtown, and then we worked out of in 4th and Davis, out of the backside of a club for a couple years, and then we moved over to 24th and Sandy to a commercial kitchen, and grew out of that really fast. And I got frustrated. At that time, it was really hard to find commercial kitchens because food carts were so popular and people were building them. That we bought a used Volvo warehouse over here in Northeast Portland, and it took a year. We built it out, and now we own our own commercial kitchen, and I've been there since 2016.
All right, so almost a full decade in business. And why did why did Farm to Fit start? Because food is not your first career, correct?
No.
Well, we're actors by trade and training, and we met in grad school in 2001 or so. And we lived in LA for a while, and we moved to Portland, Oregon when we started 14 years ago. And we were looking for a service just like this, and we couldn't find it. And the closest thing we found was something that was based out of Seattle. And we thought it was crazy because at the time, they were FedExing food to you. And we were like, what? This is nuts. FedExing food. We were all righteous and appalled by it. And so we thought that there had to be something close by using, Northwest Bounty that was local, and there wasn't. And so we started it, and that was 13 years ago.
That's awesome. And that's to me, that's really deep entrepreneurship, right? Is recognizing that there is not something and then creating it. Now, coming from the world of acting and jumping right into the food world, what was the real drive behind your decision to jump into fitness, aside from not being able to find what you were looking for, having that nutritional aspect of it? What was it that drove that decision?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I waited tables. That was my survival job for 25 years and a lot of fine dining. So I loved food, and to work in nice restaurants, you need to learn a lot about it if you're going to keep going. So I was very well educated in food. And at the same time, my entire life, I've struggled with the chub. So I've always been conscious of food and weight and different diets and what works and what doesn't. So I found in grad school when we had to do hair and we had to get naked on stage, my mom said there was this thing called Jenny Craig. She did it, try it. I did it. I had to travel 30 minutes, but it worked. Like that portion control aspect, I did lose the 30 pounds pretty fast, and it was pretty easy for me. I was really busy too, but I always, the food got real old real fast. I couldn't have done that forever. So I was also looking, I think, beyond just for the service was some way to have very delicious, tasty, you know, fine dining quality food and a variety where I could sustain it and I'd have to cook it. And so here, that's where it kind of came from. And the nutrition, yeah, I was looking at that point, and that's how we started the restaurant. Like calorie control was everything for me, or portion control, And of course, it expands as diets expand and everything at that point, So I could go down our nutritional history if you want.
No, that for me, that's exactly what I'd love to hear. Like for me, it's really unique what you all started doing here, and it was really, in my opinion, the first of its kind in the Portland metro area, where it wasn't just meal prep, but it was also this really nutritionally conscious idea of we're delivering nutritionally dense food that is portioned correctly. In my experience and my own personal eating, and a lot of my nutrition clients currently, the biggest struggle that exists is portion control, right? Because food is an emotional thing, it's a mental thing. It's really this easy to just overconsume chicken, rice, potatoes, quinoa. Even though these things are quote unquote healthy, there's still something that, if you're eating 12 ounces in a sitting, you're overdoing. Your body doesn't know what to do. So having a meal prep service like yourselves creates such a great opportunity for people to start to understand what 6 ounces of chicken breast really looks like, what 5 ounces of rice really is, and then cutting out things like seed oils and other really unhealthy fats. It makes it so much easier for someone to really fall into a good discipline and get that visual learning piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly why we started it. We were looking for it. Yes, we've always been, it's some version of eating healthy has always been in our world, and it didn't exist. It didn't exist here in Portland, and it barely existed anywhere else. So for us, when we started, it was just calorie based. So we were based on calories, 1,200, 1,600, or 2,000 calories, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's just what you got. And and it was all we have a nutritional system, and we put it through our chefs, and our chefs are creating the menus. So it was a thing. It's a process. It's still a process. We have it a little bit more dialed in. But what we learned pretty early on is that people really wanted a little bit more control over what they were eating, right? And I think that's our sweet spot is we've always listened to our clients always. So they don't want breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They don't want breakfast. They don't eat breakfast, or they eat yogurt, or they, whatever, XYZ. And so really making exactly what you're saying, Andrew, portions and really healthy eating and nutrient dense foods, but that fits within a lifestyle, right? Because you can't just force someone to eat the things, even it just doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
So that's so over the course of the years, of course we've expanded to a variety of diets and different ways that people want to eat or are eating, so we offer a lot more now. But when we started, it was very finite.
Right, and that's got to be quite a challenge, because in today's world of nutrition gurus and Instagram models and YouTube sensations, there's so much information that people are getting that is really wrong, and it's hard to find those folks that are really actually dialed in and on, in this really deep nutritional knowledge aspect of it. So how are you all keeping up with the trends and kind of staying on a flat line with what's healthy and what's kind of BS out there?
I mean, I think there's two things. We have our North Star, which is variety, deliciousness, and whatever. So there's some things we don't go over because we're not gonna do things that we don't want to eat on some like there's on certain like far out kind of things of like no garlic ever or no like we gotta have some, and we've kind of been a little bit bullish on salt too and sodium too, which is a controversial thing. But I think at first, I mean, it was kind of I mean, I'm a news junkie, so I read a lot of stuff, and I know what's hip and what's not, or what people are talking about. But we started in 2011, and at that point, gluten-free wasn't a thing. It just came on strong. And that was our first thing. And it went fast and hard. And our customers were like, we want this. We're not doing this. Everyone was saying that. And so our first move was to go, and we're like, we can't have a full kitchen. We don't have that much money. We're not Bob's Red Mill where we could build 2 huge warehouses. So we went to gluten intolerant, which seemed to pass. And that was our first thing. And we did a diabetic friendly menu because my father was diabetic. I thought that was more like I thought people wanted it. And then the next, I guess the Whole30 came, and so we you get smacked by it. You got to keep
we did a low carb before then. So we replaced, we still have this plan. It's my favorite and I'll never get rid of it. It's called the Boost plan, but we basically get rid of all the simple starches and then replace them with vegetables. So I love that one. So we did that one, I think, next, because that's kind of how I eat.
And somehow
personally,
I think paleo is the next one.
Yeah.
And then Whole30 and then keto.
Yeah, keto's definitely the last of the big 5, and now we're kind of moving into the carnivore. Have you all started seeing requests for the carnivore diet?
You know what we're getting? No, but now I'm going to write it down because now I have to do more research. Thank you. You know what we get a lot of is the Mediterranean diet. We get a lot of requests for the Mediterranean diet. Over the course of the last year.
Okay, so could you tell me what the Mediterranean diet is?
I can.
Yeah, what is it?
Do you want to tell us?
No, I would love for you to explain to me because I have no idea what it is.
Oh, really? I mean, it's mostly a lot of healthy fats. It's like supposedly the way like Italy, Greece, how they kind of eat. Think about those things. A lot of more seafood, less beef and pork, no processed meats. You're supposed to drink a glass of wine every night. That's part of it.
I think that's why it's so popular. I'm not going to lie.
But a lot of olives, a lot of olive oil, a lot of nuts, more beans, more hummus, that kind of, like more just chickpeas and that kind of stuff, and less American stuff and more balanced kind of stuff. Our biggest, to be honest with you, problem with the Mediterranean diet, and we would have one because I do see the health of it, and it's supposedly really long term, and it's kind of been proven over the last 5 to 10 years that it is a quality meat. It's really hard for us to make quality seafood and travel with it. Seafood needs to be kind of eaten fresh and made right there. We do have some like cod works. We have salmon that we figured it out, but to really make a robust diet with a lot more, omega-3 seafood stuff is hard. And so then all we got to do is make a bunch of bean dishes with a lot of olives and avocado. And avocado doesn't travel well either. And so we're restricted by like this kind of thing. So, I mean, I like the diet. It's just hard for us to full in and actually make enough meals in a week that would satisfy a customer.
Right. Okay. So it's really focusing in on healthy fats and a glass
seafood.
of wine and seafood.
Yeah, and seafood.
And that's
okay. And good proteins or proteins that aren't,
right.
Not that meat isn't but people have, the fishy stuff, the omega-3 stuff.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, I can see where that would be a more successful diet for folks. And I think that kind of, to me, that sounds like things that are really satiating. And again, getting back to that portion control piece of the puzzle is folks don't eat a lot of satiating foods. And Dre, you had hit on the diet where you're swapping out veggies for simple starches. Could you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Yeah. It's kind of as simple as that, right? So we'll take no rices, no. We do serve beans on this menu, but no rices, not even. I think quinoa. We don't do. I even think it just has. Listen, here's why I love it is because I feel like the vegetables and the things like that are just more filling for me than like rice, and I'd rather put, frankly, calories elsewhere. Like I don't like them. I don't need to eat them. I don't whatever. So that's why we get behind. Like for me, that's why we get behind it. You'll process, of course, all the simple carbs more quickly than anything else, and so they'll turn into sugars faster than, say, I don't know, zucchini. So that's what, like, that's the kind of the health reason. Go ahead, G. He's gonna correct me.
No, I'm not. I'm going to go back. Go back in time. Talking about the Mediterranean diet, what I've realized from like it seems like it's a heart healthy diet is really what it's kind of focused on. Because when you look, I'm getting old, so the doctors are talking about the stash diet. Do you know that one?
No, I haven't heard this one yet.
It's for high blood pressure and whatever. It's basically the Mediterranean diet. It's about eating more vegetables and less. To be honest with you, less beef and pork. I mean, it's kind of like
Right.
They just want you to eat more of that kind of stuff, and it's better. And the Mediterranean diet seems to be more like heart friendly.
Isn't it Dash? Dash?
Dash.
Oh, Dash. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I am familiar with that one. Be aware the carnivore diet is coming down the line, and it's
different than paleo.
I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think the carnivore diet kind of falls into the Atkins diet world of eat a bunch of meat and eat a bunch of cheese and eat all this fat, and they don't tell you things that are important like stay active. And I think that that's another piece of the puzzle, especially for folks that are starting to make that, as you said, lifestyle change, where just because you're changing what you eat, like that's step one, and there's a huge benefit to that part. But a lot of folks stay sedentary and they don't continue to move, and then they say, well, this didn't work or that didn't work. It's like, well, did you really take a full health approach to this, or were you just looking at the singular piece? What is it that food does? Like, why is it that food is so important to the diet? Like, what is it for y'all that drives your desire to create good tasting food? Like, where does that start? Because what you're doing is different than other meal preps that I've experienced, because it is so rich and so deep and so caring in flavor. Like, where are you finding, like a chef that's actually willing to listen to all these crazy requests? Because I know in the chef world, when someone gets gluten-free, or I have this allergy, or I have that allergy, chefs today are like, oh, well, forget about it. This person's crazy. Like, how are you leading your team through these processes and all these, ups and downs and changes in pop culture?
I know, it's such a good question. I think ultimately, regardless of all of it, I'll let you talk in a second. G, hold on a second. But did you bring us on here to watch us bicker? Because this is real fun. Great. I think that G said it, but our North Star is always deliciousness, and it has to be number one, right? Nobody wants to eat terrible food, especially nobody wants to feel like they're quote unquote dieting. So with enough variety and with enough delicious food, you don't feel that way. You just get to enjoy a meal, right? And that is number one. And really, it's kind of finding chefs that are aligned with that vision. And I don't know a chef that isn't aligned with creating delicious food. They just have to do it in kind of a little bit more of a box. Some people find it a challenge, right? Like, oh, this is kind of cool. How am I going to make this thing delicious without using butter, right? Or 3 times the butter that I want to use, or XYZ. I think it's finding that there's like this secret sauce with the chefs that can really do it well, where they're like, if they're like problem solvers in that way, right? Like it's almost like a game or like a challenge, I think. Go ahead. What are you going to say? She's a little bit more pessimistic than I am around this.
No, I mean, it's always been a challenge, and it is a challenge, and they like to complain about it. Chefs like to complain, right, chef? They like to have control, but I feel like I worked. I mean, from 2000, I worked at a Wolfgang Puck restaurant in San Francisco, and it was the first restaurant I ever worked at. And I worked a lot of fine dining in French, where he would do whatever any customer ever said. And he would be like, it might take you 13 hours, but I'll go out and buy something and do everything. And that was his MO. And I was just like, whoa, I've never seen anything. I thought it was crazy, but I feel like he started that whole mentality. And in the last 20, 25 years, I mean, he's been around 40, but like, I think a lot of chefs have learned more of that mentality. And if they want to succeed, they got to the customer does kind of come first. And the bosses do pay my bills. So I either have to, to stop or whatever. And also, we've had enough chefs, I think, we're in a sweet spot where we get a little bit like the older chef, like not the 20-year-old chefs. So they're more there and they're more have a family and they more have that. And all of a sudden they might have a little bit of health issue. And so they start to see it, or they want to lose some weight. And so they see it in a more whole rounded way instead of just ego and, my way or the highway. So that was that pessimistic?
Yeah, I think that no, I think that was really good. I was just teasing you. I think our chef right now, Neil Davidson, gets a lot of credit for kind of really being able to think outside of the box and always saying yes to whatever. Let's figure out how to do this. Not this is crazy. Like it's really like a yes and mentality, and I think that he does that really well.
It is, and in my personal chef business with my clients now, it's one of the challenges that I really face is, as you were saying, G, is like I want to put in a ton of butter, and I can't put in that much butter because I'm being really conscious of it. And you're right, is even though it is this big challenge, that's the thing that drives me the most. Is that okay? Great, like how can I make this work? Even when I'm working in the wilderness. It's, oh, okay, well, I'm out of propane, so now I got to start a fire and I've got to cook everything over an open fire. That's kind of the fun thing about being a chef is the amount of creativeness that exists. So, G, you were in the Bay Area in the early 2000s. So you and I were probably in the same little neighborhood at some point doing some things, uh, working on the same block, which is funny to me that we never met until we actually got to Portland. So, what was your?
We did meet. We just don't remember. Who knows?
Now, where did y'all grow up? Because this is a question. Is I don't know. Like I know a lot about the business, but I don't know a lot about you. Where did y'all grow up?
I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's where they make the bats. I spent my time at Fort Knox, Kentucky, so I'm familiar with that, and I can understand a desire to expand your world.
Louisville's a great place, but yeah, no, I left. I haven't lived there, and I've lived away longer than I have, but I still consider it home. I mean, it definitely is part of my soul for sure.
It's a beautiful place in the country, and a lot of people don't realize how awesome Kentucky is. Aside from the bourbon and the baseball bats, like you get out in the woods there, and what's that? It's the mountain range on the eastern side of the state,
Appalachia.
Yeah, and I mean that whole area is just spectacular.
And Louisville's it's as big as Portland. I mean, I'm not saying it's a huge city, but like it's
right.
It has a lot of history. It's been around for a long time, and it's growing. I haven't lived there. I have a lot of friends who still live there. I go back, but it's a great place. But then I moved to. I mean, I've lived all over, but like that, my big city, like my restaurant thing, I went from there. Then I went to Chicago, and that's where I kind of grew up in French bistros. Then San Francisco, and then kind of LA. I was down there doing that, and then my last place was Blue Hour downtown, right before we opened Farm to Fit.
I've been a part of the Bruce Carey restaurant group up there at 23 Hoyt. So we've had this full circle. Like we've been in the family for a long time, but that's cool. Like growing up in a place like Kentucky, I don't think a lot of people really think about Kentucky as a culinary destination. Like what was it like for you to, what were you eating growing up? Like, and then versus going to Chicago and all of a sudden you're getting thrown into French food for the first time. How was that experience for you?
I mean, my mom did not cook. And so I definitely grew up eating a lot of hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, and McDonald's. And it wasn't until when I was in high school looking for a job, and somehow my stepfather got me. I worked at Chi-Chi's, which was this horrible busboy in. It was horrible. And then I did this fine dining on top of this thing, and I got real tips, like $80 a night, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy!" And I was just busboy. I was an assistant server, but I was a glorified busboy, and that's where it started. And then I did work at a French restaurant there. It just wasn't advanced as the one. So I got a taste of there. Some rich guy paid for some guy to move here and open a restaurant. Like it always happens that way, or whatever. And I got to work that. I mean, it was a big chain. What I loved about Chicago, which I didn't know when I moved there, there's a real restaurant industry there. And when you go there and if you work in a cool restaurant, if not even that cool, really, you can go to any other restaurant and they will treat you like a king. And I got to go do that. And that was fun. And it made you respect your job more and respect your stuff. And you had to know your stuff and learn your wine and learn your food. But I could go, you go to Trotters and you get in there, you go whatever. Just being a waiter, people like treated you with respect. And then when I went to San Francisco, it was the same way a bit. At least up in Napa, they would treat you like a king because you can go up there and they would be really, I mean, this is 20 years ago, but it was, it was fun. I learned a lot. It was fun. Yeah, but it was Chicago. It was my first big city, and I kind of went there alone. And I grew up in waiting tables, and it was a very eye opening and hard. It was hard. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think that Chicago is probably, in my opinion, the best food and service city in America. I've eaten a lot of places, but Chicago, above all else, has always been this just top level, from the food to the service to the decor. Everything is always top notch. There's nothing that ever gets skipped. And as you said, like Charlie Trotter, like he literally wrote a book on the art of service, which anybody listening that wants to know how to run and operate a restaurant, read The Art of Service by Charlie Trotter. It's the best book ever written for restaurants, and it'll teach you everything you need to know about proper service. So that's awesome, knowing that you came from there and seeing that you apply that now to the business that you're operating. Do you see the correlation between those two things, or do you associate differently to it?
No, I do. I mean, I think it's the only way I have respect for many of our chefs. That's not the only way, but I could talk. I could talk food and history of food, or at least American dining in the last 30 years. Which everybody has. But yeah, no, it's all connected. I mean, I feel like that's how we believed to be able to start this business was like, it doesn't seem, it was a lot harder than we thought. And so, I mean, we were probably too naive in the beginning, but it was working in these restaurants and these people and that, like, why is it so hard to make this delicious food with a little bit less this or that, or, or just make it port or just cut it up, or I don't see, that I do, as far as like talking about business owner or whatever, I wish I was a chef. It would, because there's not a lot of service to our business other than delivering the food. I mean, there is customer service and but like there's no plate. I'm not dealing with the customer, and that was probably more I was friends with a lot of chefs. I understood it in my palate, but I couldn't really fix. I've never been able to really fix the kitchen.
That's understandable. And it shows again in the mentality that Farm to Fit has towards serving the community with what you're trying to accomplish. And I think you're doing a great job with it. Personally, that's what, from the outside looking in and knowing y'all, it's that's a huge piece of the puzzle, right? Dre, what about you? Where'd you grow up?
I think I'm going to answer your question in 1 second. I wanted to just piggyback on that a little bit. I'm never going to listen to anybody. But I do think that we bring some of that fine dining customer service into our business, right? Like things that are like above and beyond. One of our core values is exceed expectations. So, like we'll go as far as like slicing up somebody's meat for them before we put it in a box and deliver it to them because they can't cut or XYZ, whatever. You know what I mean? So I do think there's correlation there also that I'm going to answer that question also for you. I grew up in San Diego and moved all over. I haven't been there since I was 18 either, but go back all the time. Family is still there. My, definitely not a food desert. Lots of good food in San Diego, lots of, fresh food and seafood and, Mexican influence. So, and we moved, I moved all over and then ended up in close to Chicago, and that's where I met G. And the rest is history.
So did you have much restaurant experience or food experience aside from dining?
No, my parents are serial entrepreneurs. So They have owned businesses for as long as I've been alive. And that's kind of my background. My mom does own cafes. She owned cafe breakfast, coffee, lunches, and I grew up with her cooking. She owned a deli before then. So I kind of was like around food service, like fast casual food service. I started working there for her when I was 15 um, until I left. So that's kind of my background on, that's what I offer, right?
Right.
I love to eat and I have a business background.
Yeah, that's awesome. So serial entrepreneurship, I think that that term is kind of thrown around loosely in today's world of entrepreneurship. I I believe that probably your parents were really actually serial entrepreneurs versus today's world where someone's like, "Oh, that's shiny. I'm going to say I do that today." Versus actually putting their hands in it, putting their feet into it and putting their whole go. So do you feel like that influence growing up has really helped you to develop your leadership style now?
Absolutely. I think growing up, watching, the really highs of doing great one year and the really lows of doing terribly another year or shutting a business down or the pain that like they've over, however many years, I'm not saying, went through, or like the elation of like, oh my God, this is wonderful. I'm going to sell this. There were so many ups and downs. And I think what it does is just give you I mean, I was telling somebody recently, but it's a little bit why I'm kind of unfazed by a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like nothing's a drama because I'm like, well, yeah, here we are. I'm not like completely unfazed, but you know what I mean? Like it gives you a little bit of, I don't know, like tenaciousness, just even watching it and going like, this is normal for in my world. These ups and downs felt like I grew up with them, so they felt normal. Versus, I think being raised in a family that had, which is there's nothing wrong with it. There's actually some like it's appealing to me, but like 9 to 5 jobs and clocked in and clocked out and didn't rush 5 in the morning to go, open a coffee shop because no one showed up, you know, all of those things. But I think it gave me a lot of insight and experience for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you being able to experience those informative years is so crucial to where we are now because I mean, y'all have been in business since 2011. That means that you've been through some of the real crazy of business over the last, almost 14, 15 years, right? Like you've seen the economy crash, you've seen COVID. What has it been like for your business to go through those experiences?
Yeah. Is there more? I was waiting for the finish the question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really didn't finish the question. But wait, yeah, what has it been like
Yeah.
for the business and going through that? Like, what has it been that really drives you to continue moving forward? Because I know that for me, I owned a business through the pandemic and chose to step away. Like, I kind of saw that as an opportunity. Like, you know what, I'm gonna back out. Like, this is scary. This is unknown. I'm gonna walk from this and start something different. What was it that kept y'all pushing forward?
I mean, it was intense. In the beginning, we were part of this business group that has helped us a lot called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. It's for business owners. And there was all these calls from people around the world and how the world's going to fall apart and get ready and do all this stuff. So we went into heavy bunker mode and we're planning a recession menu and we're going to do all this stuff and everyone's closing down around you and we didn't know. And we planned it all and got everyone to work, but somehow our business just kept growing without doing anything. And we realized it took us a while to realize it because we were so scared that, oh, we were the perfect business for this pandemic. And then before we realized that, I think, or maybe as we were starting to, our dear friend and we had two chefs. Our second chef died May of 2020, and he was kind of the heart and soul of our business beyond us, especially of the kitchen. And it just on a Saturday, boom, on the couch with his daughter. He was 38 and healthy, and it kind of, in one weird way, it pulled us together to get through this really hard time of growth without knowing, and also everyone in masks and spread out and all this stuff and da da da. Because it was more, I think, emotionally acceptable to put your face down and work your ass off instead of deal with the pain and suffering. I mean, we did what we could, and we had an outdoor funeral or whatever, like, and sat in the garage and drank tequila and spread away from each other or whatever. But it really somehow, in the worst of times, that brought that team together to get through the whole project. Don't you think, Dre?
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
Yeah.
and I think it really, I don't know, it made us grow up in a big, it was hard.
Yeah, COVID was an interesting. I mean, everybody was in crisis, right? At that moment, everybody at the moment, nobody knew what was going on. Even, I mean, we were one of the lucky ones, right? We did well throughout the pandemic. But it was still, I mean, but it was hard. So we never shut down. So it was kind of always in this kind of panic mode of what do we do and following the guidance. And these are the things, it was terrifying. We all did it. We all went through it. It was awful. We were just lucky, that we did all right. Um, I think that the food, what we're seeing now, if we're talking about it, is that people are eating differently than they were, right? So we're seeing a little bit of that post-COVID backlash happening in the business currently, where people are just redefining how they're eating, and what food they're bringing in their house and what they're cooking, and if they're going out. So we're, I think, recalibrating from pre-COVID. The whole industry is, I mean, I'm talking to you like you don't know any of this, but the whole entire industry is kind of recalibrating. And so we're at the moment now where it's like just figuring it out, just kind of watching. And I think to actually answer the full question is that's how it's been, right? Through recessions, through this, through all the things. It's just kind of like trying to be one step ahead, but just really paying attention to what's going on high alert, right? Um, you can never predict, obviously.
Right. And that's a really hard thing for business owners to do, especially when you're juggling production, juggling the numbers, you're juggling taxes and staffing. It's not easy to maintain that. And you hit on something that I'm really excited about as we move forward into this next era of folks being really aware of what they're eating, what they're bringing into their homes. And I think that we are really on this cool cusp of folks asking a lot more of the deep questions of where, why, how. And that's something that you're answering. Like, you're answering all those questions, right? Like, you're answering, where this food is from, how it's being prepared, and why it's important. So what kind of ingredients are you using in your foods today, that are really a part of that movement?
Yeah, it's a good question. Do you want me to reply? Can I reply, G?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I just don't want to, hog the mic, as they say. I think somebody said something recently, and I really appreciated it. And it was, would your grandmother recognize this?
Mm.
And I think that's a really great, just kind of ideology to live by, as far as what we're putting on our meals. Certainly, nothing, it's none of the things, it's none of the process, you're just cooking food that comes in to your door, like you do at home, hopefully, right? So whatever the simple ingredient is, whatever the most pure form of that ingredient is the thing that we're cooking with. We always hear, I'm gonna take the implication of the question, which is, is it organic, or is it this, or is it that? And oh yeah, a lot of it is. What we find, and you and your audience know this, is that you can't. It's really hard to get certified organic, and it's really expensive to get certified as a farmer. And also to buy it, right? So whether or not a farmer may or may not have a certified, like their sticker, doesn't mean they're using organic farming processes. And that's one of the things that we really try to educate our clients on, is that, you're not always going to see your certified sticker. Go buy your food, but just buy it smart, buy it from the right people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% on the organic stickers are silly train. As you alluded to, the reality of trying to become a 100% certified organic farm is a bunch of unnecessary hoops and a large payout for a stamp, because I would almost be on board with the organic stamp. Like if it was one time they came out, they checked in, and then maybe a year later they check back in, but they want you to pay year after year after year just to stay in their database. And it's not just like, oh yeah, $100. Like this is a $5,000 to $10,000 process for these farmers that are growing small crops. Like this isn't mass farming, and so I am in the same boat. I've never really bought into it, especially being in a food manufacturing business previously. As like, I laughed at that whole idea. It was just so silly to me. But in today's world, folks are reading a lot of labels. But again, reading labels is one of those crazy things, right? Like I just recently learned that the FDA actually allows a 20% variance in what the nutritional label says. So there's a chance that it's 20% different than what's actually there, which to me, like 20% is a lot, especially when you're talking about, I think a lot of companies hide things in dressings and sauces, and that's where you can say, oh, well, we added 20% more sugar and we didn't have to say it because it was underneath, it was 19%, not 20. And that's crazy to me. Speaking of sauces, that's something y'all do that is different than other companies, is you actually make your sauces instead of just taking something off the shelf, putting it in a side serving container and putting it with your meals, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's weird. I was like, I wouldn't even consider doing that.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? But that's what they do, and that's not to say anything's wrong with them. They're trying to make their living. They're trying to do the best they can, and they're trying to use these ingredients that are quote unquote stamped good or stamped organic. But I think that you nailed something. Is like, I would your grandmother recognize this? That's killer. I love that. And when it comes to like making sauces to complement your food, what are y'all doing in the way of like making your dressings? What kind of oils are you using?
I'm
Olive.
yeah.
Olive.
We're using olive. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can say like when you said the grandmother thing, it goes back, and we're not doing it, but like we went and saw this help doctor speaker or whatever, and he was all about the Mediterranean, but he was all this research and whatever. He works up at OHSU, really straight guy. He was just like, and it was kind of insane to hear him like, do not eat oat milk, do not eat da da da. I mean, he just cut everything down. He's like, this is all processed as BS, and all these things are all the wave of the fads. And it was like, get olive oil and get really good stuff, and don't use anything else. Coconut oil, maybe one or two of them, but usually that's. I mean, it was like, whoa. I mean, don't you think, Dre? Like, I was like, thank God we don't do it, like because you want to go that way. And we're like, whoa, don't go like. So I mean, I think olive oil. I think we just use that because I think I mean, my wife's, Miller's Mediterranean, but like, we like the flavor of it, to be honest. I mean, do you think, Dre?
No, I love olive oil.
And it goes back to the deliciousness. It's like, and then it seems like that's as long as you get a good product, it's. And to go back about where you were talking about where everything comes from, I will say, like, and I think about this, if we ever go expand out of here, the nice thing about being in the Northwest is that even all the purveyors, the big purveyors, are conscious that the buyers want more locally, more small stuff, so they offer it, which is great. Because I'm sure 30 years ago that was not the case.
Yeah, I that is nail on the head. I love being in the Pacific Northwest because of that. I think that's one of the things that drew me here. I've been in Portland almost 18 years now, and I came up here from San Francisco, and I came when the food scene was hot and rocking and rolling there right before the big crash. And the thing that I fell in love with most, especially, so I grew up in Sonoma, the city of, and I grew up on a small farm. And like, to me, that's what food was. Like Sonoma was really like driving, that farm to table before farm to table was really popular. When I came here and I visited, and I was like driving by a farm on my way to the city, it just blew me away. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then I got into the food business and I started working in restaurants, and it was like everything we were ordering it wasn't getting delivered by a single box truck. It was getting delivered by, the farmer themselves or the rancher. And now, 18 years later, there's some really great companies here in town that do the delivery for those farmers, again, because we are a farm centered, public push. So we really want that farm to table experience. And so we've had the opportunity for entrepreneurs in that space to really, help the farmers do what they do best, which is farm and not deliver. And so it's great to hear y'all talk about that and hit on it. That's huge, right?
Yeah. It helps us. I mean, a support. It helps. It really is a win-win. I mean, there is the maybe not so win-win is that there's definitely a cut, that distributors are taking from the farmers, and that's disappointing and really hard. But what else? It's kind of, I don't know. I go back and forth on it, right? It's like, well, or you or you can distribute less things and less volume. I think there's got to be a reason that it works for them, but I do think it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Right. And that's actually another really good thing that I really like about Farm to Fit is that with all the rising prices on everything in the world, y'all have stayed true from what I've watched is you're not gouging your prices, you're not trying to, outpace or out earn the other companies that exist. Is y'all are very approachable in the overall financial end of things. Anybody can jump in and be like, you know what, this is going to be reasonable for me. This isn't, someone doesn't have to make a sacrifice financially in another area of their life to be able to eat healthy with you. And I think that that's something that is so cool about what you've done as well. Yeah. I love it.
Are you saying we can't raise our prices, Andrew?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying you can't raise your prices. You need to raise your prices and you need to be able to, pay your bills. And it's important because if you aren't able to run your company in a way that keeps y'all alive, then all your customers and all your clients are going to suffer, Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. We're going to do that. I feel like it's important to keep healthy eating accessible, right? That was kind of part of the thing, part of the mission is how do you make healthy and delicious food easy and accessible, right? You don't have to be rich to eat well. That's kind of the most basic way of saying it. But I just believe that everybody deserves to have a really great meal in front of them. Yeah, I think that's why we keep doing it.
Yeah, that's the American perception, right? I can't eat well because I don't earn enough. And I think that that's one of those really backwards things that some of the corporate food companies in America have really helped keep moving is that, oh, you know what? You can't afford asparagus, but you know what? You can afford the 3 bowls of Frosted Flakes. No problem. Sure, just eat that instead. The food pyramid is one of the greatest Ponzi schemes ever created. Maybe not Ponzi scheme. What is it? A pyramid scheme. Yeah, I'm just going to go with pyramid scheme because we're talking about the food pyramid. But, in today's new research, new science is that's completely upside down. And the amount of grains that we've been told that we're supposed to eat throughout the day is just completely wrong, and we couldn't figure out why we had high blood pressure, why we're seeing all this really increased obesity rates in America. Our cancer rates were increasing, but we're looking at all these hyper processed foods that are primarily grains. And so it's exciting, again, getting back to where we are today is, folks are really aware of that. And I think that the research will continue to change and it's always going to be fascinating. Again, working in the nutrition coaching arena right now for me is every week someone's asking me, hey, I saw this person said this and I think that that's going to be the new thing. It's nope. No, it's not. No. Basics. Is it a whole ingredient? Yes. Eat it. Is it raised locally? Yes. Eat it. Is it line caught fish? Yes. Eat it. Is it an oil like olive oil or even avocado oil periodically? Yes. Eat it. I just picked up some ghee, the refined butter.
Clarified butter. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I'm a chef and clarified butter is something we've always had in every restaurant I've ever worked in, but I haven't been using it. And I was recently reading an article about how it has a much higher burn point than olive oil does. And it has the same, essential fatty acids that something like olive oil will, but it doesn't have the milk solids that regular butter does. So the way that our body processes it is a much cleaner, healthier format, so you don't wind up pushing it directly through the liver and all the way through our filtration system. Is it just kind of passes through the lower GI, which is super good. And then because you aren't burning it at a lower temperature, the possibility for carcinogens is much lower. So
they used to make it. So I'm Middle Eastern. My grandmother used to make it, of course, by her. So her fridge was full of jars and jars and jars and jars of it. But it's all she would cook with,
Right. Well, that's and again, I'm really excited to cook with it. I'm making some halibut for my clients this evening, so I'm going to sear the halibut in the ghee and see, what the difference in the quality is. I'm very excited about this. So
you're making me hungry.
Yeah. One question that I've been asking all of my guests is, what do you think American food is? Like, in your mind, when you think about American cuisine, what is your take on American cuisine?
Well, there's kind of, I don't know. I mean, do you want new American or old American?
This is the hardest question that I ask people because I have my answer, and I'll tell you my answer when we're done. But I want to know what you think American food is.
It's hard. Like, I think of my grandparents, I think of meat and potatoes. I mean, that's, really what I think of when I think. I mean, I grew up in, Kentucky. And probably, shittier, excuse my language, but, worse cuts of meats than we eat now, like the cheapest meats. They were depression people, or then, I think of my childhood, I think of McDonald's. If you think of it that way. But then if you think of my, the last 35 years of my life, I would think it's more, for better lack of term, California cuisine, which is like, I guess, like a little fusion, a little French, a little Asian, a little all of it mixed together with, But I think in general, and I would say this, let me go back to this. And I say it to our chefs when we started the business. In general, it's a meat, a vegetable, and a starch. That's the American cuisine.
I dig it, Dre.
I mean, are there any wrong answers?
No, there's no wrong answer. This is 100% opinion based.
Opinion. I really, my first thought was, of course, the typical thought, like, oh, hamburgers and French fries. But I actually don't think that's true. I think American cuisine is like a melting, at least inspired by kind of like the melting pot that we are. It could be anything. I think we're all like, I think anything that I can think of that I have is inspired by some other quote unquote cuisine somewhere in the world, right? So
and that's my answer. Yeah, that's my answer. I think that American cuisine is American, right? And what is America? America is a place of all these different cultures that got thrown into one little tiny spot, and one person cooked this, and then someone else tasted it, like, oh wow, I'm going to take that with me, and then they took it, right? I think that American cuisine is exactly that. It's a mesalliance, if you will, of all the beautiful cultures that we have in this country coming together to create new things, right? Like, America's never had paprika. Americans never had hot peppers. The Americas never had cinnamon. They never had coriander. So all these things have come here with the cultures that have made it home, and that's what's really driven American cuisine. So, but I also think that hot dogs and hamburgers are 100% American cuisine. Like, if someone was like, okay, enough of your melting pot, like, what's your American cuisine? I'd be like, it's a hot dog and a hamburger on a Sunday afternoon. Like, that's American cuisine, right?
Awesome. I won't turn down a good burger.
No.
I also think, weirdly enough, pizza is too, to be honest.
You think pizza? So wait, okay. Well, this is
Italy, but like, I would say there's probably more pizza places in America than there are anything else.
I could definitely get behind that. I do. Yeah.
When I have a kid, they eat a lot of pizza. Kids eat a lot of pizza. I love, like, there's a lot of, as far as consumption, there's a lot of pizza being eaten in this country.
Well, I'm going to look into this. I'm going to figure out what it is that we consume most of in America. I'm going to dive into that. I'll get back to you.
Should be in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. I can't believe that this has already been an hour. Like, this is it flew by. Y'all are very easy to talk to, and you have a wealth of knowledge. And I think that my listeners are really going to enjoy hearing your story about what you do. Where can folks that are listening find more about Farm to Fit? How do they get signed up? And yeah,
www.farmtofit.com is probably the easiest way. And once you become a customer, we do have an app that makes it really order or not order. But our website is the best. And if you really wanted to not do that, we have a customer specialist waiting for you Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, named Nick, and he's a glorious human being. And that's 503-588-6928. No, God, 508
Nope, he totally doesn't have it right. It's 503 503-688-9248. Clearly use the website.
I didn't say it out loud.
No one calls.
farmtofit.com. Don't call. I mean, I'm sure Nick's a wonderful person, but we're gonna avoid keeping him totally wrapped up in busy. You know, y'all on Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, we have all the socials.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to list all those things in the show notes as well as the website. Dre, G, thank you both for joining me today and sharing your story with me. I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing what the next adventure is.
Cool, man.
Thank you for having us. It was nice to talk to you. Bye.
Heck yeah. Have a great one, y'all.
You too.
That's it for this episode of Here From Where. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. A huge thanks to Justin Pitaleski for the music and sound production, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep moving forward. All the best, and happy cooking.